My name is Andrew Crenshaw. I represent the 4th District of Florida, and I'm joined by some of my colleagues. Senator Casey's here, Representative Pete Sessions from Texas, Representative Cathy McMorris Rodgers from Washington State. I want to welcome everybody here. I want to thank them for being here. I want to thank all the people that represent the different communities that are advocates for people with disabilities. Chris Van Hollen is here. Chris, come on up. We're just getting started. We're here today because really the work of all of you all. We've worked together collectively to bring about some legislation today. We're going to file legislation that has become known as the ABLE Act, Achieving a Better Life for Everyone. And with that, we will have the potential for a pathway for individuals with disabilities to have a better life, a brighter future, if you will. And we're going to hear stories, real live examples of how this is going to impact people's lives. We're going to hear from members of Congress about their thoughts. But I think one thing we all agree, that someone with a disability is going to face challenges. Their families are going to face challenges that sometimes we can't even anticipate. They're going to have struggles, they're financial struggles, they're going to be personal struggles, they're going to be difficulties, and they're going to face them. And they're going to face them without the advantages that the tax code say to go to college. You can set up a tax savings account and you can use the proceeds to pay your college tuition. If you want to save money for retirement, you can set up a tax-free account, let it grow tax-free, and use those dollars for your retirement. If you want to save money for health care costs, pay insurance premiums, you can set up a health savings account. That's tax advantaged. And yet, people with disabilities, individuals with disabilities, don't have that same kind of opportunity. And so that's why we created this legislation. That's what the ABLE Act is all about. Right now, if you don't have these kind of advantages, you're going to face these difficulties. And I think we all agree that that's just not fair. For instance, if you are one of these individuals and you have a disability, all of a sudden you get benefits that are limited, and if you go beyond that, you can't acquire assets in your own name. You get penalized almost. You can't get that birthday check that somebody wants to bring you. You can't have assistance in your housing. And I think we'd say, is that the right way to treat those among us that are less advantaged? And I think we'd say no, absolutely not. And so that's why we've worked to create this legislation. It meets head on. It tackles this unfairness in the tax code that says some people get a tax advantage, others don't. All this does, very simply, very understandably, very straightforwardly, it says you can create a savings account, let those dollars grow tax-free, and use those proceeds to help care for an individual with disabilities. Maybe it's education, maybe it's transportation, maybe it's special equipment, but it's only fair. And I think it's time that we all who are more fortunate look out for those that are less fortunate indeed. So we've worked on this legislation for 6 years. Every year the legislation gets better. Every year the support grows. And so maybe this is the year that everything will come together. I hope it will. And so now I want to ask Senator Casey for his remarks. Senator Casey?
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to thank the members of the House who are here with us, Representative Crenshaw, Representative McMorris Rodgers, Representative Sessions, and Representative Van Hollen for being with us and working not only in a bipartisan manner but also bicameral, both House and Senate coming together on a critically important priority for the American people, which is to say to Americans more broadly, but in particular to families with someone in their family that has a disability, that we're going to do everything we can to make your life better, because we're going to give you the tools you need to save and plan for the expenses that a child or a family member will incur. And in so many ways right now, these families who have a member of their family with a disability are further disabled. They have another kind of disability because we haven't provided them a pathway, a vehicle to be able to plan for, to save, and to be able to more significantly provide the kind of pathway for that child and for that family. So that's what this does. The ABLE Act does that, and it allows us to come together at a time when seemingly very little works in Washington. We can come together on a priority that these families have been asking us to make a priority, and I think that the American people understand that we can use the tax code, we can use strategies to make sure that families, and especially our children, have a way to save and to plan for the kind of care that they're going to need. I'm going to be voting in a couple of minutes, and I mentioned to Sarah Wolf, who's behind me, she's going to speak later. She's from my home county, so I'm going to cede the rest of my time to Sarah Wolf when she gets up here a little later, because she's a dynamic, effective advocate, not only for herself and for this legislation, but for young people across the country. So you're in for a real treat to have her here, and I'm so honored to stand with her and to stand with these members of Congress to come together and to finally put in place a strategy to help our families and to help our kids. Thank you very much. And I should introduce, I'm introducing Congresswoman Cathy McMorris Rodgers, who is one of the leaders on this legislation on this side of the Capitol, and I was just remarking to her that it was so nice that she and others have invited people from the other side of the Capitol to be on this side today. Thank you very much.
Right, and we made sure it was a beautiful day for the senator. Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, Senator Casey and Representative Crenshaw and Sessions and Van Hollen and everyone that is a part of making this bill a reality. The ABLE Act is session, and I am excited about the fact that we have such broad support that's represented here today. We are here because there are more than 50 million Americans that live with a disability, and it should be our goal to move forward on government policies that nurture and that lift people up and increase their chances to live the American dream. And yet, too often, some of the policies, and in this case, the tax code, restricts the opportunities that are available to those with disabilities. One of those Americans that has been impacted by this was my son Cole, who was born in 2007 with that extra 21st chromosome. And you know, when he was born, we were told don't put any assets in his name, because at some point he may need to qualify for one of the government programs. You know, I think there's something wrong with a system that suggests to parents not to prepare, not to provide for their children. And there are millions of parents in this situation that want to help their children improve their lives, want to help their children prepare for all the opportunities that this world has to offer. And so I'm proud to join today in support of the ABLE Act and would like to introduce Pete Sessions from the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Cathy, thank you. Senator, thank you very much for being here. And who've worked very well to make sure that the ABLE Act is presented to you today. Cathy McMorris Rodgers has spoken from her heart about her young son Cole, and she and Brian are facing what will be a life with Cole to prepare him for his future. I have that same opportunity with Alex, my son, a Down syndrome young man who now is 17 years old. Alex is an Eagle Scout, a really fun guy, and who's been described as Pete Sessions with Down syndrome. He does very well in everything he does in life, has exuberance for life. But as we have watched Alex grow and mature and prepare for his future as parents, and today you're learning as a country, we have tax law as well as other rules and regulations that take away from these disabled Americans the opportunity for them to have an equal chance to prepare for their future. It's not just the tax code. It is the will of the American people today to change that. The will of the American people to say that we do not believe as a nation that we should have laws
that say, if you are disabled, that we do not want you to have the rights that are available to others, and perhaps the way it's really said to a family, we want to have that person to where they will grow up and be dependent upon the federal government for all that they have, and at that we will limit their opportunity for success. Today, these advocates, including Patricia Jennings, who is out of Boston, Massachusetts, who speaks to me on a regular basis. And Patricia, I want to thank you for being here today as a strong advocate for your daughter. I get this. Those people that are behind me understand how important this is, that the 50 million people who are disabled really do not have as strong a voice without us working together. Us working together and standing for them will mean that we can accomplish as a national goal, a goal of this generation and of this United States Congress, to say we are going to change not only the face of this country, but we're going to enable people to have that fair opportunity. Cathy McMorris Rodgers, as well as Chris Van Hollen, sit as co-chairs of the Down Syndrome Caucus. And I am quite honestly shocked that Chris Van Hollen had time to be last on this program today as a result of him sitting on our important super committee. But I was really shocked to know that a Washington Redskin fan would join a Dallas Cowboy just several days before the slaughter that will take place over at FedEx Field here when the Cowboys come to town. I will be joined this weekend by my son Alex, who is the National Down Syndrome Ambassador for 2011. And Alex will be in town with a chance to come and see this place that he's heard about, and he really doesn't always remember. But Alex will come to town this week, and I will, with a renewed sense of opportunity, walk Alex around the floor, and Chris Van Hollen and Cathy always so ably come and are so polite and stick their hand out to Alex. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a chance for Andrew Crenshaw and Bob Casey and those of us who are joining them to say we are going to give the right hand, the correct hand, to people with disabilities, and I'm pleased and proud once again as I work through this to have my dear friend Chris Van Hollen here. Please help me welcome Chris Van Hollen.
Thank you,
Chris.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. And I want to thank Pete for all his leadership on issues to make sure that individuals with disabilities can achieve their full potential. Pete, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your friendship. Cathy, it's been a great privilege to be co-chair of the Down Syndrome Caucus with you. So thank you for your leadership. Ander, thank you for introducing the bill today and for your leadership. And Senator, it is great to see the senators over here on the House side. I will concur with that. And Pete, let me just say, for the record, the super committee will get a deal long before the Washington Redskins make peace with the Dallas Cowboys, and we're still hoping we can work our way through to get an agreement. A few weeks ago, I had the privilege of attending a dedication of what is the Montgomery County Aquatic Center. The Aquatic Center is a center in the district I represent, and the ceremony was held to rename the Aquatic Center after Sergeant and Eunice Shriver and Eunice Kennedy Shriver. And the reason we were naming the Aquatic Center after them was because of their work in making sure opportunities were available to people with disabilities. And in the 1960s, in Montgomery County, Maryland, the only swimming pool that was open and accessible to kids with disabilities was the pool at the Shriver's home, which they made Camp Shriver, which later grew into the Special Olympics. And so it was in recognition of that that we were dedicated a few weeks ago. And of course, since then, in my congressional district and other places around the country, we have made great progress as a country in trying to make sure that we are an inclusive society, and that we treat everybody equally and give everybody full opportunities. But we still have much work to do, and that's what this ABLE bill is all about, because it's an opportunity to help individuals, to help families, help themselves by putting away extra resources to make sure that all the needs of the family are met. And so while we've made progress to date, we do have a long way to go, and this is a really good bipartisan idea for how we can take the next step in providing additional resources, additional help to families, and allowing families to help themselves achieve what they want to achieve for their kids and for everybody in the family. So I want to again thank my colleagues and thank all the groups who are here and all the families and individuals. Without you, of course, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you for being such a strong voice.
I got it. Chris Burke just wished me luck. So, my name is Chip Gerhardt, and I'm the chairman of the board of the National Down Syndrome Society. And I too am a parent of a vibrant young girl by the name of Anne, an 8th grader. And what this is about is affording her the same opportunities that every other 8th grader should have in this great country. The National Down Syndrome Society is the national advocate for value, acceptance, and inclusion for people with Down syndrome. And we fight every day for our constituents, and this is a proud moment for us. And I want to thank the members that are here for putting their names on this bill and their willingness to fight for us. It's important not only for the National Down Syndrome Society, but it's important for this country to take this step. We've worked hard on this bill. We've worked with the ARC, Autism Speaks, and 20 other organizations on the ABLE Act, and we hope that this is the time that it finally gets passed. I want to give a special thanks to 2 people that have worked tirelessly on this bill. Madeline Will, who's with the National Down Syndrome Society, our National Policy Center, has worked for years and years in the Down syndrome community. She's preparing for her daughter's wedding, which is a joyous occasion. She can't be here today, but her fingerprints and her blood, sweat, and tears are all over this. And I think he's to my right shoulder. A special thanks to Steve Beck for his tireless work. There he is. Put up your hand, Steve. We wouldn't be here without people like Steve Beck. So Steve, thank you very much for your work. This isn't about me. This is about people like our next speaker. I'd like to introduce my colleague on the National Down Syndrome Society board and friend, Sarah Wolf.
Hello, my name is Sarah Wolf. I'm here today representing the National Down Syndrome Society, where I sit on our National Board of Directors. I'm 28 years old, from Moscow, Pennsylvania. I am a law clerk at O'Malley Langen in Scranton, Pennsylvania, and I'm also the Director of Advocacy at Keystone Community Resources. I definitely have something unique. 21st chromosome. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak about the importance of the Achieving a Better Life Experience, ABLE Act. What does this bill mean to me? It means a lot of things. When I graduated from high school, I wanted to go to college, but didn't have the financial resources to do so. However, this didn't stop me. I took one course at a time, and so far, I've earned 15 credits. Thank you. By the way, I just paid off my college loan. The ABLE Act would give individuals like me and our families an option to save for our future financial needs in a way that supports our unique situation and makes it possible for us to live full, productive lives in our community. This bill allows me to do all the same things everyone else gets to do. Save for my future. I want to thank my senators, Senator Cathy, Senator Burr, Congressman Crenshaw, Congresswoman McMorris Rodgers, and Congressman Van Hollen, along with many other members of Congress, standing with me today for leading the charge and introducing this landmark legislation. On behalf of the disability community, I call on Congress to pass this bill this year. Because I can't wait to stand next to President Obama when he signs this bill into law. We want to go to college, we want to work, and we want to make our own choices. Empower us to make those choices and save for our future. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is Peter Bell. I'm the Executive Vice President for Programs and Services at Autism Speaks. And I can't tell you what an honor it is to stand here underneath the Capitol and with this incredible crowd of advocates and members of Congress who have stood up for our families, not only today, but their history has really shown that, excuse me, that they have really gone beyond the call of duty, so to speak, and to really stand up for those that have a disability and those that are working hard to be an American. I represent a community that's part of the disability community that's at least 2 million and growing. This is a bill today that's been introduced, or that will be introduced, that not only is stronger than previous editions, but the need is even more urgent. In terms of autism, we know that the rate of autism is increasing. Today, about 1 in every 100 Americans have an autism spectrum disorder. It's an increase of 600% over the last 2 decades. We also know that there's a wave of children who are going to become adults with autism in the future, and their futures need to have the financial security to allow them to live as independently as possible in the communities. And so this bill is going to allow members of our autism community, as well as the disability community at large, to be able to realize their dreams, to be fully contributing members of our society, and that's what this bill is really about. This is not only important for us as a community, but it's also very important to me personally. Like many people here, I'm also the father of a child that has a disability. My son, Tyler, is 18 years old, and he has autism. And I can't tell you how heart-wrenching it is during certain times of the year when gifts come in from relatives and so forth, some of which are financial, and they go to our other children, but unfortunately they don't go to our son that has a disability because of what we've heard before, and that you can't have a certain amount of assets in their name. They're often excluded from being able to participate in those kind of gift giving. What this bill will allow is for them to be treated equally, to have the opportunity to have money that's set aside for their future so that they can be all that they can be, that they can go to college, they can have jobs, that they can be part of our community. And that's why we're all standing here today. And I think Sarah said it best here, and that is we have an opportunity to do this now. We can get this done. We have bicameral, bipartisan support. We have literally, hundreds of people standing here today, but there are millions of people across the country that are waiting for something like this to happen. So on behalf of the autism community and Autism Speaks, we thank you for being here, and we look forward to a successful passage of this bill so that Sarah can stand next to President Obama and actually watch him sign this law into an action. So thank you very much.
Peter Burns from New York.
Good afternoon. My name is Peter Burns, and I have the privilege of being the chief executive of the ARC, which is the largest advocacy and human services organization for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I'd like to thank Representatives Crenshaw, McMorris, Rodgers, Van Hollen, Senator Casey, and Burr for their leadership in introducing this legislation. In this tough economy, everyone is feeling the stress associated with financial planning. How do we protect our families? How do we prepare to send our children to college? How do we plan for unforeseeable health events that may take place? And that stress is even more pronounced among families that have a loved one with a disability. They must grapple with the financial challenge of providing for their loved one the opportunity to live a life like the rest of us, a life full of independence and opportunity. Last year, the ARC conducted a national survey called the Family and Individual Needs for Disabilities Support Survey to find out exactly how families are faring in these economic times. And the results were shocking. 62% of parents reported that they don't have a plan for where their son or daughter with an intellectual or developmental disability will live when they get older. 73% of caregivers reported they don't have enough in place for their own retirement. The financial reality for these families is scary. Their future is uncertain. The ABLE Act can't get to President Obama's desk soon enough. Instead of penalizing people with disabilities whose families try to save and support them to be independent down the road in their lives, the ABLE Act will provide new opportunities and break down barriers for people with disabilities. The ABLE Act embodies a lot of what the ARC stands for, and that is about giving people with intellectual and developmental other disabilities the opportunity to achieve their dreams. Families are looking for ways to finance things, like an apartment, a ride to work, a post-secondary education, looking for ways to finance things that won't jeopardize the services that are provided by federal programs like Medicaid. This bill creates another important tool for doing that will allow people to live more independent and fulfilling lives. I'd like to introduce you to my friend Jeffrey Michael. Where's Jeffrey? Jeffrey, you want to come up here? Jeffrey's a senior at Walt Whitman High School in Bethesda, Maryland. And when he graduates, he wants to work in the community, perhaps in the paleontology field. But in order to fulfill his dream, his mom is going to need to help make that happen, saving additional dollars for training and transportation and making sure that she can financially plan for Jeffrey's needs for the future. Right now, there are a lot of obstacles to that happening. If Jeffrey and other young people like him aren't given the chance to contribute in their community, their families may not be able to continue working. In our FIND survey, 1 in 5 families reported that someone had to quit their job to stay home to take care for their loved one with a disability. The ABLE Act will remove these barriers, barriers for people like Jeffrey and everyone else like him who shouldn't have to abandon their dreams of working in the community simply because of the difficult logistics of making that happen. We actively support this type of savings for families, for the future of our children without disabilities. The ABLE Act creates the same opportunity to do so for families with individuals with disabilities. It's the right thing to do for people with disabilities. It's the right thing to do for their families. And it's the right thing to do for our economic future. Thank you.
Thank everyone for being here today. That concludes everything.
Right.
Thank you.